Hey all, Alex here, and welcome to the Music Deep Dive. If you have never been here before, I'd want to say hello, greetings, welcome to you all. If you are a returning visitor, then I'd like to welcome you here as well. This is a video I'm going to make where I'm just going to sit here and kind of explain for newer viewers how the channel works, and then also give an update, a summary of sorts for what we have done this year of 2023. About a year ago, I made the video that until now has been the sort of channel introduction video. But that video, it's a year out of date at this point, and the last year has been a really educational one for me as I really sit here and kind of try to understand what this channel has turned into over the last year and change, and see what my goal is and how they have changed in relation to the channel. So first of all, kind of the big thing is that we sort of incorporated a name change to the channel slowly throughout the videos. If you were to watch some of my older videos, you would see the name Music Hub being used pretty frequently. We changed the name from Music Hub to Music Deep Dive, or I changed the name. I'm not going to pretend like it's a team of people back here. I changed the name from Music Hub to Music Deep Dive because I think Music Deep Dive really tackles the idea of what I am trying to get at with this project. And we made that kind of a slow transition over time, but that is the name, and that's what we're going to kind of roll with going forward. And I'll talk about that project in a second, but first of all, I have to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed and who has been watching all of these videos across kind of a wide variety of different topics. We've been introducing a lot of more specific musical types of videos in recent months, weeks, etc. And it's been really cool to see the channel jump over that 100 subscriber mark, and I'm hoping that we will continue to see it grow over time. Now, what is the project that I'm embarking on for those of you who are new to the channel? Well, essentially, I wanted to create a resource, create something that is memorialized, that discusses the history of music, but specifically the topic of recorded music. So that is what the Music Deep Dive is. I was a music student in college. I took a number of courses on the history of Western music, which really means Western art music, what we call today classical music. And it's fascinating stuff, and it's stuff that I am reading about, have read about, will continue to read about, but it does not tell nearly the full picture. Now, the flip side of it is when you get into the history of popular music, that history tends to begin more frequently than not in the rock and roll era. So I also took a history of rock music class, and while it touched on the sort of ancestors, if you will, of rock and roll music, the real first, like when it gets into the beef of the class, starts, unsurprisingly perhaps, in the year 1954 with Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock. And I'm not saying that is a completely invalid way to view history, but you have to keep in mind as well, there are decades worth of recorded music that happened before 1954, decades worth that happened before Robert Johnson, even of the 1930s, right? And I'm not going to sit here and say that we are, sitting on this treasure trove of lost classic tunes or anything like that. I'm not going to say the 1890s has a particularly captivating jam that everybody should hear and would be totally relevant today. I more so mean that if we're going to talk about the history of rock music and popular music, then we need to reckon with the stuff that came before the stuff that we know about, if that makes sense. So the goal of this project is to kind of cover the history of music in the era of recordings and how music interacted with the recording process. And so what that means is, the project in essence is going to start full bore when the phonograph is invented in 1877. And it's going to get even more so, even more intense when we get into the beginnings of what we would consider the commercial popular music industry, late 1880s, very early 1890s. You have the first, what we think of today as record labels. In those days, phonograph companies. Columbia, for instance, Columbia Records exists from that time period. So, there's a whole lot of history to delve into, and that is going to be the core of this project. However, in order to understand that, there's a few things we need to do. Number one, we need to understand music that was made before the advent of recordings. We also need to understand how humans recorded or notated music before that time period. So there's a whole discussion to be had about the history of sheet music, the history of oral traditions, how those things have manifested themselves in different cultures. There's a whole fascinating bent to this that cannot be ignored. And then the other piece of it too is just an understanding of the historical context of things, both from a socio-political lens, because you cannot separate music from politics. I don't care who you are. If you think that you can, you are wrong. And the other piece too is understanding the artistic side of things. What was going on in the visual arts scene around that time, what was going on in the literature scene. Eventually you were going to get into films and television, and I think we all know that those things are very inseparable from the context of music, with film soundtracks and what have you. All of this stuff is important. All of this stuff needs to be researched. And that is my task. That is the goal that I have set for myself. And that is what you are hopefully going to see on this channel, as well as other places. So, to start off, again, this channel has been focused primarily on reviews of books so far. We've incorporated more music-related content, like I've said. But ultimately, a lot of what I've been doing for this project has been reading, whether it's been reading about figures from the period, musical figures, or just significant events. I need to educate myself on what happened to get to the late 1870s. And it's been a whole process. It is a chronological process, by and large. And I am getting closer to the 1870s in this chronology. I think most people, if you're following along, will see that I am at about the year 1850 right now. Now, there's a lot to get to before 1877, 1880, what have you. There's, of course, the American Civil War. There's a lot of books about the Civil War that I plan on reading because you need to understand that period of time to understand the kind of subsequent actions, the events that happened to lead to this kind of next industrial revolution, and what led up to not just the advent of the phonograph, but the social conditions under which popular music, recorded popular music, first came into being. So that is the purpose of this channel. The music videos are still going to come as we continue through this. However, I've been reflecting on this in recent months, and I realized that really I want to make sure that I'm not losing my focus and getting sidetracked on too many different side projects. So I know I've appeared on a couple of other YouTube channels. I know people seem to really like the collaboration I did with Tom Williams on the Beatles video, which I'm really excited about, and I would love to do more videos with Tom at some point, but they're not a priority. The priority is going to be this project, this undertaking. So with that, there are two other components that I'm continuing to work on. The first one is a website. I mentioned that in the last video. That website is not going to be published until I get to the 1870s, in essence. Like once I get to the point where I have stuff that is worth memorializing in a blog post, then I will publish it and I will make sure that everybody knows where you can find that. But the goal of the website is essentially, as I am listening to music, as I am listening to recordings from this period, that I am memorializing what I am listening to and what my thoughts are, impressions, historical analysis, if you will, for each piece, each album, EP, single song that I'm listening to. I want to have at least a sentence's worth of something to say about each of them. The things that Robert Christgau would do for The Village Voice, these little capsule reviews that are only a few sentences long. I'm not saying they're going to be like Christgau in terms of their writing or in terms of their tone or approach, but in terms of brevity and hopefully in terms of writing efficiency, that is what I strive for. Now, the other piece, I have mentioned in the past that I want this to ultimately culminate in a book project of some sort. And I would still like that. However, I am trying to reflect on ways that I can take what I am learning and present it to you, anyone who is interested, in a more timely way and in a way that is likelier to reach more eyes, or dare I say it, more ears. So the goal that I have and what Music Deep Dive has for 2024 is to continue working through all this reading, because the reading is essential. I'm not going to skip a step of it. But the ultimate goal is that rather than prioritizing the book, and we'll let the book kind of come as it happens, the goal is to prioritize memorializing this and documenting this project in the form of a podcast. This is the type of podcast where if I wanted to, I could just start it today and go off of what I know already and try to create some sense of narrative and some sense of order out of all of this. I don't want to do that because I want to get this subject right and I want to get this output, whatever that looks like, as effective as possible. I take the approach that I want to document this history, not because I want to say that I was the one who documented it, because I have no interest in giving myself any credit for much of anything that I'm doing, at least at this point. I want to document this and I want to present this history in this way because I want it to exist. And if no one else is going to do it, which I don't think anyone else is, then here we are. I might as well take on the challenge. So what I've been doing as well, which has eaten a little bit into my music listening time, has been listening to other music-related podcasts, trying to get a sense of how they organize content, how they tell stories, because ultimately we're telling history. So yes, we're telling events, we're talking about events, but we are also talking about human beings. We are talking about individual stories, collective stories. The art of storytelling is a wonderful thing, and it is something that I have always considered myself to be pretty decent at. However, it is something that I would like to improve upon, and really kind of solidify and really clean up. So I've been listening to other podcasts, watching documentaries, trying to understand how to present a story in a way that is captivating to people. And I sincerely hope that it will be captivating. I really think it will. There's a lot of colorful characters in the history of recorded music, in the history of music beforehand. And I don't know, it's going to be a fun time. So I don't have details on this, and I'm not sure if this is a podcast that will actually exist before the end of next year. But I want people to understand that that is the goal. The goal is for this podcast to exist in the not too distant future, so that you all get to hear some of these stories that I've been chronicling, amalgamating from different sources. And hopefully by doing that, I'll be able to get people to maybe appreciate some styles of music, some individual musicians that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise been aware of or been open-minded to. And I am really excited for what this is going to look like. So I want you to stay tuned. I also want people to not panic. Not that I'm expecting people would anyways, but to not be too upset if maybe the actual general pace of video making, even if it becomes more consistent, is not going to be as frequent, because I want to make sure that I'm putting all my resources as well into manifesting this other type of content, this other product that I think people are going to honestly enjoy even more than these videos. So just bear this in mind for the future, but I am very excited to see where this channel has come. I'm very excited to see where it's going. For those of you who are new, I hope you stick around, because I really think there's going to be some exciting stuff coming up, and I hope that will continue to get better as a presenter, as a creator of content, a teller of stories. For those of you who have stuck around, I thank you again wholeheartedly, and I think you will be very excited by what's to come. So until next time, I'm Alex. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me what you're excited about. Is there a particular topic that you think would be interesting for me to discuss, either in the podcast or perhaps a discussion video of some sort? I'm all ears. I'm not saying it will happen, but I'm curious to see what people's thoughts are. Make sure to tell a friend as well. Even if you just tell one person, it helps me immensely. I think word of mouth is ultimately the best form of sharing content with one person to another. So please go ahead and tell your friends about this if you think that they would genuinely enjoy this. Thanks so much, as always, for watching. Have a great holiday season, and I will see you next time right here at your home of the Music Deep Dive.